What's your first race with AJ?
First race was Orlando.
I think I was there.
Orlando.
I was
First
there
time
for
in
the first
Orlando.
one.
Very first
Yeah.
IRL race was at Orlando. I think I qualified like 6th in his car. We had a hub brake towards the end of the race and got into the turn 2 wall, kind of a tricky little track. Not hard, just, I mean, it broke and it just went turning and scraped against it. I think that year we ended up like 6th maybe in the championship, that rookie. But I was truly a rookie. You know, I was racing against guys like Scotty Brayton, Eddie Cheever, you know, some of these guys that had been around, and Richie Hearn, and some of the guys that were very, very good.
But I remember being there, and the talk was all about you.
Yeah.
You were riding with AJ, you were successful prior to that, and the talk was, you know, this is a guy that can win Indy.
Yeah, you know, that was very fortunate because I was surprised. I had guys like Jonathan Bird come up to me and go, man, you're fat, you look good, you know, which I'm thinking, guys I've respected, but it just fit. And AJ was good. I mean, he was good. He knew I was a rookie, and he knew, I mean, he knew what to do. I mean, he brought me up the right way. And, you know, it's a pretty interesting story too. So we're running good, and we get to Indy. I think we went to Phoenix and I ran second or third at Phoenix for him. Then we go to Indy, and momentum's there. I'm on, you know, we're top of the charts, you know, top 5 or 6 every day. And confidence is coming, and I go out and run that 232-mile-an-hour lap in practice right before qualifying. And I told AJ, I says, man, I tell you right now, we run 233 or 234. I know we can. And I was all pumped up and excited. And we go out to qualify, and I'm running 230s, and like a 230.0 whatever. And I'm like ducking in the car and trying to be as smooth as I can. And I come in, I go, yeah, I don't know where the speed went. I mean, we were just slow. The car was too easy to drive.
Did you ask if the tub was cracked?
So no, and he goes, son, you're just getting ready to crash my cars, you know. So I had to slow you down. So, right?
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah, he knew that I was so fired up, and I was just going to go for it no matter what. So,
oh my goodness!
But he probably knew better than I did, right, at that time.
Yeah.
So he actually slowed me down to kind of contain me, which at the time I'm thinking, what did he do that for, right? But hindsight of it, you know, he's a smart guy. He knows. He knows I was probably on the edge of the rope right there, just ready to fall off. So.
So how'd you qualify?
So we did good. I think we were. I think I was 7th that year. So I think we were inside 3rd row, if I recall, and had a good race. We ran. I think I finished 6th in my first 500 with him.
Wow.
So it was good. You know, we had a good run, and we ran. I think that year in the championship, there was only like 4 races. I can't remember how it exactly worked for sure. But then in '97, I came back with AJ, and we were runner-up in the championship. Tony Stewart beat us with Menard, but they cheated. So you know.
You're a friend of Tony. You can say that.
Yeah, I can say that. No, it was, you know, obviously I don't need to tell you how good of a driver he is and what a good team they had. And we battled all the way to the end, and it was down between the 2 of us, which was pretty exciting.
It was
because
so much fun to watch.
Here's 2 short track racers that were teammates in short track with George Snyder in Silver Crown races and stuff. And so, you know, could have been with a better guy. We go to the last race, which is Las Vegas. There's only, I think it's like a 5-point separation between the 2 of us in points, so it's like so close. And that particular race, I think Tony would probably tell you today too. I mean, we've had a lot of races since then, but as far as entering a race and finishing a race, that's probably the worst performance either one of us have ever had. You know, like we were like 15th and 16th. We weren't even in the game. You know, I mean, he spun out once. I clipped the wall. I mean, it was just like
pushing hard.
We kept trying to give it away to each other and just pushing so hard. And he ended up beating me. I think it was the closest championship battle until just a year ago or so, a couple years ago, maybe it came, not this last year, obviously, but the year before possibly. I can't remember. It came right down to a point or 2 with Will Power and maybe Dixon. I can't remember. But I think we had a 4 points between us when it all ended. So it was close. It was good fun. And that's what was healthy for the series at that time. It was healthy for Tony and I, coming from our backgrounds, you know, coming from the short track industry, showing that maybe giving the short track drivers a little, you know, confidence and, you know, encouragement that it can happen. Dreams can come true.
So you're 2nd in the series, closest finish in the series ever. What do you feel like at that time? Is it eat at you that you didn't win the series, or are you hungry for the next one? How is your feeling then?
Yeah,
your
you
mindset?
know, there's so much disappointment when you get 2nd in anything. It really is, and knowing that you're that close. But then I'd look back and try not to dwell on the things that went wrong, because I look back, oh, that one spot right there would have did it if I didn't do this or you didn't do that. So I try not to beat myself up. But at the other side of the coin, I'm going, are you kidding me? I just ran second in an IndyCar championship. I never knew I'd get out of Idaho, or Meridian Speedway, the track we run there. So so you have to, count your blessings, and you have to just dig deep and try to, fulfill, what your goals are again. And that is, don't worry about the past and dwell on the past all the time. If we all had, 20/20 vision or hindsight, life would be too easy.
Yeah. I want to ask you, before we get away from that season, what's it like to drive 500 miles with A.J. Foyt in your ear?
We had our struggles because our computer kept telling the crew that I had fuel when I ran out twice.
Oh.
And I don't know if you remember AJ ripping a computer out of the stand.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
And I don't know all that's going on. I'm just out racing, running out of fuel all the time. I'm not sure what's going on, but I know I'm running out of fuel. And so technology and him didn't get along too good.
No.
But two of the best are, A.J. Foyt, who's a hero of mine, one of the best, and Mario Andretti. I mean, arguably, those are two of the best open-wheel guys ever just because of the history.
Right.
But you look at Mario's record, and he's won 500. But if you look at laps led, he's one of the top guys, right? And Mario, that guy can get amazing skills even today. He has amazing skills, and he gets the most out of a car.
You guys both drive the Indy Experience.
Yeah, we get to hang out with, great thing is two of my, being able to hang out with AJ still today and be such great friends is just super cool to me. And then Mario, not knowing him as long as AJ, but the last few years racing or driving the two-seater Indy cars with me, it's been a great experience. It's been really, really cool, and so much appreciation for the guy. But I do see where there's no pacing for Mario Andretti.
Right.
It's go time. And I don't know how many between Michael and him, how many 500s that how many laps have led but not wins. And I think that goes back to they were just chargers. They really were. They get everything out of a car.
They do. When you start an Indy 500, is the car turbulent when you're all going at once there?
When I started in front, it was pretty good. When you're in front, you get a little spoiled. But I unfortunately had to start mid-pack a few times, and wow, what an experience that is. Oh, just the exhaust fumes and the turbulence. And now they're getting these cars to where the turbulence aren't as, you still get them, but the cars react to them very much, so much better. And you could actually get right behind a guy and make it through the corner, where back when I started, the car wouldn't hang on.
So would that contribute to why there were so few caution flags?
Yeah, absolutely. They make the car, I don't want to say easier to drive. I just think that they're a little more raceable. Dallara, I think, has done such a great job with the safety part of the car and making them so competitive. It's a lot of them. I mean, the series, everybody has a play in it, but I'll assure you that they're not easier to drive. They're just different to drive.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're a few points off the series championship, and what happens the next year?
So then the next year, I go to a different team, actually. I go to Rick Gallis Racing. And,
from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
From Albuquerque, New Mexico. Super good guy. Yep. And it was kind of the next, hard to leave AJ. And I don't think either one of us really intended to leave. I don't think he intended me to leave, and I really didn't intend to leave. It just kind of happened. And so there was a little friction there maybe for a little while. But thank God, that's all. I mean, like I said, we're best of friends right now, and I really enjoy the relationship I have with AJ. But went to work for Gallis, and
no, they had won an Indy 500 with Al Jr.
That's right, with Al Jr. in a Gallimore car, one that they built that really was not a good race car, but they somehow won the Indy 500 with it, right?
I auctioned that car.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
right
a long
on.
time ago.
And well, Alan Morales, the Gallimore part of it, it was Gallis Morales, and he was an engineer for us at one point there. So yeah, it was cool, just being in that, what they did. And I think Rick took me to another level as far as, really playing strategies in the race, not just going out and going for it, and and taught me, some other things technically with the race car. So it was very healthy. And And I ran a couple years for him, ran another second in the championship. We're fighting with Kenny Brack.
Yep.
And Kenny he beat me by a bit more of a margin. But
now Kenny's racing for A.J. Foyt at that time.
So at that time, yeah, we're battling my ex-car owner with the new one. And so, which was cool because I knowing that they have a good team. I just was there and just ran second, knowing they had a good program.
Yep.
And then going to a new one. And Gallus has been out of the game for a while.
Yeah.
He shut down the team for 3 or 4 years. So it was just him coming back. And so it felt pretty good.
Why'd you make that move? Was it financial, or was there an opportunity that came with it?
It was more at that point the stability of more of long term to where AJ, he at that point he was still engineering the cars.
Yeah.
He owned them. He ran the team. He engineered them, and he flat told me that he was getting tired.
Yeah.
He said, "Man, I don't know. Running 2 cars is difficult." Scott Sharp was my teammate, another great driver. So I'm thinking, ooh, man, am I the weak link? Although I beat him in the championship and some things, but my sponsor was going away at that point, which was AJ's longtime sponsor of Copenhagen, U.S. Tobacco.
Yeah.
And so that was another cool thing. You hop in the car that AJ got out of, right? So that was pretty neat. And the number 14,
you drove 14.
I drove the 14, and so that was really, really cool. So all through, I always drove the 14 when I drove for AJ. But just not knowing when he told me that, I understood it. I know he's trying to engineer 2 cars. He's, the finances of both of them, and it was wearing him out. And I thought, well, I really thought he could go to a 1-car team. And at that point, him not deciding and the opportunity with Gallus kind of came at the same time.
At 98 at Indy, you were with Gallus.
Yeah.
And do you remember how you qualified?
I think that was my best qualifying run, 5th or 6th maybe. I'm not, I forget the qualifying part
I bet you remember how you finished.
But that was my best finish as a 4th, and I was actually leading the race going into the late stages of the game, and I made a huge mistake coming into it was either the last or second to last pit stop in contention to win that darn race and leading laps, and I stalled it. And nobody stalled it but me. There was nobody. I mean, you're the guy in there with the pedals, and so by the time they pulled me back, started it. I fell to 4th at that point. I think maybe even to 5th, and I got 1 spot back on track. But
I think there was a 500,000 people collective sigh in the
yeah. Well, I was one of them,
track.
man. So you got a tear in your eye. When that race finished, I'll never forget. It was my best Indy finish. But I so didn't want to come in the pits and face my crew guys that I let down. The fans and my supporters and my sponsors that, I'm the one that stalled it. So there was a big weight on my shoulders, and it was hard, man. It was because you just don't know what would have happened. It wasn't meant to be, obviously. It wasn't meant to be, and I know that. But I like things that wasn't meant to be, that's not solely on you, right?
Amen.
So we had a test the very next week, and it was out in Las Vegas. And we were going out there knowing that was the last race of the year, that we wanted to be prepared for the championship. And then
our mutual friend Richie Klein.
Richie Klein, that's right. And Richie Klein's, I worked for him. I was living there at the time, actually doing some work for him at the track. And we go out there, and I'm excited about getting back in the car and going to find speed. That's what we do as racing drivers and get the most out of it. I spent the first full day doing pit stop practice, in and out. And I'll tell you though, we never lost a pit stop competition ever with Rick Gallus from that point. My in and out speeds from pit box out and pit box, coming into the pit box, I was faster than anybody on the track. And I wish I would have went through that routine early in my career, because I found out I was giving up a lot on that portion of it, back to that 1 second at 200 miles an hour, right? I mean, it was a football field.
Yeah.
And so I learned so much, and at that point, like I said, we never lost. When we entered a pit stop competition, we won it. And
practice indeed makes perfect.
And his guys were the best. I mean, they practiced daily. At that point, I feel like I was on top of my game. We was right, and it started clicking, man. Things started happening really good. We had a few problems. I look back at that year and second the championship again, but we had some mechanical things that were out of our hands. I remember at Charlotte, without Rick Gallus talking to me on the radio, I more likely would have parked the car because the throttle was stuck open. And I drove a whole race with a toggle switch, with a kill switch on and off, right? So,
my goodness gracious.
Fortunately, at that track, it's a 1.5 mile high bank. You can't go wide open around there.
Right.
And
just so people understand, the banking keeps you going. I think they're all calibrated at certain miles per hour, but you could actually keep the wheel. I'm oversimplifying, but you could keep the wheel straight and it would go around, when it's banked so much.
Just so much banking and so much grip, and it allowed us with the downforce levels we had in our car for Charlotte. It definitely allowed us to go wide open around there. Thank God, you know what I mean? Because now with my throttle sticking open.
Yeah.
But here was the problem when yellow flags come out.
Oh.
So you have to shut it down, and then you get going slow, then you turn it on, it's wide open, and it's wheel spin and hang on, and I always had to go to the back of the field and pit stops, so you had to shut it off, and they'd fire it up, and then you had to, that thing was open, and you'd fling out of the pit. It was a challenging race, but he talked me through it. I mean, he talked me through that whole race, and we didn't have a great finish, but we made points, you know what I mean? And he taught me how to points race at that point, how to not give up, how to just, because it wasn't I'll never forget that race, how challenging it really was, and how hard it is to drive a car with the throttles that stuck open, and not a secure feeling whatsoever.
Good thing you trained.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you ever pray in a car up to that point?
Sure, absolutely. You know, most of your prayer comes before.
Right.
I mean, a lot too, from the night before, the day of, getting in the car. I mean, there's a lot of prayer and a lot of different things go through your mind that you pray about. But absolutely, when you're in the car and you know, when you're fighting in the battle, your mind's fighting in the battle. But when the yellow flag comes out, and you know, you already found that some of your prayers have been answered at that point in the race, but you find more to pray about.
Yeah,
you know?
I believe it.
So, yeah.
So, how long do you stay with Gallus?
So I was 2 years with Gallus, and then there was again, the Gallus got back out of the sport. Basically, you know, it was he came back. He was out. They came back in, had some fun, but he didn't want to spend money out of his own pocket, which is very understood. And then I went with another team that out of Dallas, Texas. It was called Team Extreme, and it was new owners again. And you know, they really had intentions of being. They wanted to be an A team. They wanted to do what it took to win. Unfortunately, it just didn't go their way. You know, I mean, funding didn't come as they hoped, and some things. So I struggled that year. You know, we made all the races. I was Iron Man, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
Ran for those guys a couple of years, and then went to work for Sam Schmidt, who was my current partner in the IndyCar series.
What year is that?
And that was 2001.
Okay.
And that's when, you know, we were actually, for a low-funded team. So I was with the best, and you're kind of riding, you know, riding the wave a little bit. We actually ran good. We were fast. We were contenders. But then, and that next year was the opportunity of a lifetime for me. And the following year, I had some opportunities to be with the teams, and was just kind of weighing it out, and the timing was right. But then that was the crazy year. That was the one that...
We're going to get to that.
Yeah, it was a crazy year.
So do you remember how Indy went in 2001?
Yeah, I remember very well. We were like I say, in a team that was really kind of underfunded. And Robbie Gordon was racing for the Coors Light car for Sabatas. And he came to do the double.
Felix about it?
Felix, yeah. And so Robbie was going to do the double. Yeah, absolutely. And Robbie's running full time for him, decided to do the double. And I think he was the second guy to do it. Maybe John was the first, Andretti, and then...
To go from...
Charlotte. Andy to Charlotte, yeah. So I remember going to pass Robbie for fifth at the end of the race. And he kept, like, not cutting me off, but running me down the grass. And finally, I had a good enough run on him to where I got beside him, and I actually got in the grass going down the back straightaway. And we're pals, you know what I mean? I like Robbie a lot, but he was trying to protect fifth, and it was close to the end of the race. I mean, we're literally like lap one in the 190s, so it's really close to the end. I get into the turn 3 where I didn't have the angle that I needed to have getting into turn 3, so I had to lift a little bit more than I normally did, and unfortunately broke a timing chain. And that's what put us out. It was, you know, I made it through the corner, everything was fine. But when I lifted, it just lifted more. And then when I reaccelerated, the timing chain after, you know, long race was the weak link at that point. And so we broke down. I still blame Robbie for it a little bit, you know. But like I say, it was, you know, for a team that we had, we were contenders. You know, I mean, we weren't going to finish better than fifth, but we were in that position.
That's awesome. So you go to Texas. I think Texas might have been the next race that year.
Next week, yeah.
And it's another 500-mile race. You were married to Tracy at the time, and that's coming to an end.
Yeah.
And I think you had some really serious conversations about that even that morning. I'd like you to walk us through the events of 2001 at the Texas Motor Speedway.
Yeah, you know, it was a challenging year. It really was because of from professionally, roller coaster. You know, like I said, just after the 500 that year, talking to a team owner that we were going to, for 2002, be set and be with a team that we could win a lot of races with. I would hope, and then, but personally, you know, I was going through, you know, ups and downs with my marriage, and
you have 2 young children.
We
you
have
got DJ, Davey Jr. and Haley.
Yeah, exactly, and they're both young. And Tracy and I met. I was racing, and that's what I did, and she knew it. But we were able to travel together. She was by my side the whole time, and then we had Davey Jr. still traveling together, still, you know, having a good time. And then we had Haley, now 2 kids, and mom, you know, kindergarten, school, kids can't travel as much, and situation where I didn't change. You know, I mean, I was still off doing my thing because that's all I knew, and she was, you know, being the mom.
Yeah,
and,
she was anchored.
She was the anchor, and not being able to travel, and just life changed so much. And neither one of us knew how to really grasp hold of it, honestly, at that point. And you know, we talked, and it just felt like we were going in different directions, and priorities on both sides were different.
Yeah.
And no right or wrong, but just different. And the morning of that race, we talked, you know, because we talked a lot, you know, I mean, because we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to get divorced. So the morning of the race, we said, you know, what's probably best that we, you know, we divorce, and on both sides we agreed to it. It wasn't like an argument at any stretch, but I said, you know, but we need to, next week we race in Colorado, let's meet there, and let's talk it over and make sure it's all easy and good. And then it was the first night race, I think, at Texas.
Yeah.
And that night, just you know, wrong place at wrong time.
You're coming in turn 2. And there's a wreck on the track that collects you.
Actually, I was going around a guy that blew an engine. It was actually, ironically, Tony Stewart's car that he owned, because he owned a car for a while, and nobody's fault whatsoever. He blew an engine. The engine got on his own tires, his driver's tires, and I seen him lose control, and so I'm trying to go around him. So it's a situation where at that point, you don't really have a lot of options. You either smash into him under brakes, or you try to get around it, because I felt like I could make it around him. So I went up higher, and he went out of my sight. I thought, okay, I made it. Then just at the last second, he just barely clipped the back of my wing, but enough to spin me around, and then the car got airborne. And, you know, when we're downforce going forward, but we're lift going backwards. And as the car got backwards, as we've seen many times, as the cars will lift. And then I was so close to the wall that the back of it got into the wall and swung the front around into the fencing. And it sheared the front of the car off, which...
You're going like this in the fencing, and it's shearing the front of the car. And
220 mile an hour, yeah.
And are you conscious at that moment?
Yeah.
And what are you thinking? I know it's only a few seconds.
Yeah, it's only, you know, at that point, I was disappointed. I thought, geez, we are going to get in the wreck. And then the hit comes, and think, well, we're out of this race. It's a big enough hit. And then it just kept kind of going, right? I mean, and then when I came off of the fencing onto the track, still traveling fast, because I was coming off of turn 2. I didn't stop until the entry of turn 3. And knowing that I was hurt, knowing that, you know, I couldn't catch my breath, I thought, wow, that was big. That was a big hit, not just a wreck. That was big. Not knowing really
what
the
kind
injuries
of situation
yet. Yeah.
Are you in pain?
Not yet. The pain hit once the car stopped. Then I couldn't breathe, and so I tried to get the steering wheel off, not knowing that the front of the car was gone. I mean, there was just a little bit of tub, so from where my view was, and it was dark, and it was down against the inside wall, I couldn't see that the front of the car wasn't there. I could see the tires weren't there, but that's kind of a normal thing, but I didn't know the tub part wasn't there. And so I tried to get the steering wheel off, but I couldn't get it off, and I couldn't breathe. And so I was going to try to unbuckle and get out on my own, just to get out. And the second I tried to move, I knew.
You were hurt.
I knew I was hurt. That's when the pain came.
Now, you cry out to God. I suppose you remember what you said.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, they got me out of the car and I went on the stretcher, and it was on the front page of the Dallas newspaper, and it showed me on the stretcher praying. You know, I had my hands together praying, and you know, I just asked God. I needed God more than ever before. You know, I mean, I've always prayed, I've always relied on Him, I've always went to Him for advice and thought. But at that point, I knew I was in some serious trouble for just life.
I think you said, God or Jesus, I need you now.
Need you now. More than ever, I need you now.
And if you were ever going to look back at a point where you drew a line in the sand, put a stake in the ground and fully surrender your life to Christ, that is definitely it, because He's all you had.
Yeah, there's two times, right? From the time I was saved.
Yeah.
You know, I remember, you'll never forget that point,
Yeah.
and the commitment and the direction.
And that's as a young...
That was at 18.
18.
And then, but then that point, that was the reality, knowing.
Let go anything you were holding back at that point.
Yeah.
I had the exact same thing in my life. And it took the IRS to rate us for something that we were not guilty of. It was just a shame. And it was after 2 years of horrible economic time. It was the early 90s, and I thought we were going to lose everything. And I remember getting on the knees beside my bed and doing the same thing. Yeah, and I was saved at 9, but I had taken control of my own life for quite a while at that point. So I get where you are at that, but can't empathize at all with the accident. So I remember you're on a stretcher and you hear a radio of medical teams, or maybe about a hospital, and you think, man, somebody's hurt really bad.
Yeah, that was actually, they put me in the infield med center, which fortunately all these tracks are so nice nowadays, and Dallas being one of the state-of-the-art ones at that point. Yeah. But they had an infield med center, and you know, first thing I'm thinking, they're not going to cut my suit off, are they, right? But that was too late. They already do that. And they had me stabilized, somewhat tied down, and then I heard that call saying that Parkland Hospital, that a life flight's going to be coming from Dallas, you know, Texas Motor Speedway, or Dallas Speedway, and that it appeared to be a double amputee. And when I heard that, I thought, man, somebody did, because I know there were other cars in the accident. There's oil, there's cars crashing around.
Sarah Fisher was in it, I think.
Sarah Fisher, Jared Schroeder, I think maybe Eddie, I'm not sure, but there were several guys, you know, involved, and I thought, man, somebody really got hurt in this thing, knowing that I'm hurt, but not hurt.
You don't think that's you?
Not a double amputee, right? I mean, so, and then I looked at the nurse that was kind of stabilizing me, and I stopped screaming for a while because I was definitely in pain, and I looked at her, I go, are they talking, was that about me? And she shook her head yes, you know, and it just like, oh my goodness.
It just sets in.
That set in, big time set in. So, you know, that was a moment that you never want to hear about yourself.